Well, this is I'm John Carter, and this is Judgment on Congress. We every time we have this program, I try to invite one of my colleagues that to come in here and talk to us. And today, I'm especially pleased to have not only one of my colleagues, but one of my fellow Texans, and a man that I highly respect, both from his judicial background and from the things that he does here in the United States Congress. And that's my friend Louie Gohmert from East Texas. And Louie, I'm really pleased to be here with you because, you know, we have some fun together, and that's what this is all about. I think if you didn't have friends up here, you'd get kind of bored.
Yeah, that's true.
But we've got a lot of issues that we're dealing with. A lot of them that are driving us crazy. The spending issues and all.
For some of us, it's a short trip to crazy. But
well, speak for yourself now. First off, I think everybody knows Louie Gohmert. They all in Texas. But tell us a little bit about your district over in East Texas, and just so people know where this show's going to, for me, is going to air in Central Texas. You're over in East Texas, the upper part of East Texas, right?
Right. Well, it's actually a middle section out of East Texas, from Upshur County, the north end, and Marion County, the two north counties, all the way down to Angelina County, where Lufkin is, San Augustine, and Sabine County. So I live in Tyler. We've got just 12 full counties and a little part of Cass County, but just I love it.
Well, I spent 6 weeks trying a murder case in Tyler a while back, and
I remember.
Really enjoyed being in Tyler. It's a great town, and real friendly people. Everybody was real nice and courteous and treated us real well.
Yeah,
so I enjoyed that.
You didn't hurt the average IQ when you came to town either.
I tried to raise it, but I don't know whether we did or not.
You did good.
You know, I'm going to talk today, center on the conversation that we have almost every day up here, being from Texas, and that is the southern border. Now, we can talk about the northern border a little if we want to, but really, we live within striking distance of the southern border. And I know we've both been very vocal on the issues of we got to do something about the illegal immigration. We got to do something about defending our southern borders and being prepared. And I think that a lot of people have thought that some of this stuff was just rhetoric, especially some of the folks on the other side of the aisle. They act like we're just trying to throw a fear factor in and have rhetoric. But an article came out today, and I don't know if you saw it, about the fact that the Al-Qaeda went on television and it explained that they were trying to bring a suitcase full of anthrax through the drug dealers' tunnels into the United States so that they could release that anthrax in a major city, causing hundreds of thousands potentially of deaths. And to me, that is exactly what we've been talking about.
Sure.
So I'd like to hear your comments. Well, you were familiar with that report.
Well, yes, I'd seen that. The thing is, you know, for most of American history, we had two oceans protecting us so that people wouldn't come bother us. I mean, they'd have to cross oceans to get here. We didn't have to worry about anything from Mexico or Canada basically hurting us. I mean, there's virtually no nation in the world that has had that kind of luxury. So through our history, we were able to concentrate on things like manifest destiny, going west, the Industrial Revolution, you know, using the incredible resources with which God's blessed us. But 9/11 made something very clear. The oceans don't protect us anymore. And so we should be concerned about all of our avenues of entry. Now, the southern border seems to be the most used avenue of entry by people that want to do damage to us. There are some that are coming across for jobs or health care or something, but no nation can preserve its civil rights and protect its people if it doesn't protect itself at its borders. So we have a choice here, and Judge, I know you know, and both of us having been former district judges, we dealt with criminal issues.
That's right.
But we either protect ourselves from people wanting to come in and hurt us, like the Al-Qaeda with the suitcase of anthrax, or people will be forced to give up more of their civil rights and their privacy in order to make sure we're protected. Now, I know you and I agree because we talk about this. I want to protect ourselves from our avenues of entry, from having people come in to hurt us. I don't want to give up any more civil rights. And that's what we see happening.
That's right.
Oh, let's let these people come in that'll hurt us and we'll catch them in the country. You're going to have to violate people's civil rights to do it. Let's catch them at the border so that we don't give up any more civil rights. That's right.
Let's turn them back. And let's start off letting everybody know. Louie and I have both been to the border on numerous occasions. We both visited with the Border Patrol. I sat out in the bushes with the Border Patrol one night. Those are some courageous people doing a heck of a job. We've gotten a lot more resources down there, but those men and women, they work hard. They have the dangerous job. Now there are automatic weapons all up and down the border. There's drug wars going on across the border. And these people are went from being country folks that were turning back a few workers coming across the border to dealing with major drug cartels smuggling in major amounts of serious drugs. So if without this issue of the safety of our nation against Al-Qaeda, just the drug issue has become such an overwhelming issue down on the border that we're concerned at every level. Law enforcement, of course, my court was in Georgetown, which is all right on the 35 pipeline, which everybody acknowledges is the #1 drug pipeline in America. More drugs move up and down I-35 than any other highway in the world.
Well, US 59 has become a major.
It is over in the east. That's right, and that goes up into Louisiana and on out that way. 35 goes all the way to Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, so we got issues that have been going for the whole time I was on the bench, and we arrested mules just about every day coming through there. But now we got this serious possibility, and they're talking about a suitcase that's like a carry-on bag. They don't have to check it. They can carry it on. They can carry a little old bag like this. 4 pounds of anthrax is enough to do major damage distributed in a major city.
Well, and we have people say, now you've got to be careful because you may offend Hispanics and drive away Hispanic voters. I want to protect everybody, and I know you and I have talked about this. And from a personal standpoint, and I know this is not necessarily part of border security, but one of the big problems we've got in this country, as you know, is we've had a decline in, and this is my personal feeling, a faith in God, a love and devotion to family, and a hard work ethic. So, generally speaking, you see the Hispanic culture, and
those are all their issues.
Faith in God, a love and devotion to family, and a strong work ethic. So I look at the Hispanic culture and Hispanics coming in, and I say, you know, these could be the people that help us get back to the 3 things that made us so great.
That's right.
Faith in God, a love of family, and a hard work ethic. But now we still need border security, because one of the things, you look at Mexico, they ought to be one of the top 5 economies in the world. They got the hard workers, but they have corruption, because they do not have such a love and appreciation of the rule of law.
That's right.
In this country, we you know, there are some people that get away with things sometimes, but really, I mean, whether you're president or whether you're a judge or whomever, you have to
answer to the law.
That's right.
You bet.
And so we have done a better job of any nation, I think, since Solomon's Israel, of using wisdom, having a good judicial system. I mean, people do make mistakes in the system, but generally a good system that follows the rule of law. And so you have people say, well, we've got this problem economy in Mexico, so we need to come across to your country, and then let's ignore the law when we get there. Well, I want more Hispanics to come in, but it has to be legal, because if we give up on the rule of law, applying across the board to everybody, then we create a society that is just like the one people around the world have had to flee. That's because an economy can't grow where there's corruption.
You got to have a law. You can't have a lawless society.
That's right.
And one of the arguments I tell people, as the cartels moved to the border, the lawlessness became more a way of life on the other side of the border. That anytime you start having a lawless community, it festers into a sore that's really, really pretty putrefied. The other issue that you hear people say is, why do you guys always talk about that southern border? All you Texans, Well, first off, we all live pretty close to the southern border. But that's not the real issue. One of my folks back home made a good comment. There are, most of the people that live in Canada live within 200 miles. I got a phone ringing, I apologize. Within 200 miles of the American border. There's more people live in Texas than live in Canada. So there's not a whole lot of people north of us to come down here. If everybody in Canada came down here, we just double Texas's population.
But
but Mexico, all the way to the tip of South America, there are literally millions and millions and millions of people that potentially could come up.
But
here.
if you're Al Qaeda and you're looking for the best way in, you'll look at the Canadian border. That's right, and they're seeing that to smuggle something in, they think it's best to try to come through Mexico. Now, I'm all for putting up drone planes and have a virtual fence to protect us from people coming across from Canada illegally. I want to protect every avenue of entry. But what we know from the drugs, I mean, when I was down in Colombia, I was asking the Colombian officials, DEA, the British have some people there, why do all these speedboats, with a 1.5 tons of cocaine put in Mexico? Couldn't they, make it to a Texas beach, for example? And they explain these guys are business people. They play the odds as business people, and they have a much better chance of getting the illegal drugs into the United States by landing in Mexico, coming through Mexico, and coming across the Mexico-Texas border than they do of landing on a Texas beach. So I want to protect the beaches. But you also got to figure if they believe that's the way to come, that's where we got to stop them.
And I know you visited Israel, I believe.
Sure.
The Israelis have now
good point.
Some major tunnel finding abilities that they've developed over there. Because when they protect their borders, they protect them above, below, and on top. I mean, they're looking everywhere. And tunnels are a big deal to them. And I know we're getting the equipment down there to find these tunnels, but these tunnels are getting to be important. And they're not so much our problem because of the river. But when you get into New Mexico and Arizona, all they got's a barbed wire fence and a lot of areas. And so it's easy to tunnel over to the other side that way.
And people say, well, a fence wouldn't make any difference. You go to Israel. Now, people call it the wall, but actually 75% of their wall that has provided them so much protection in the last few years is a fence.
That's right.
It's not a wall, it's a fence.
It's a fence.
But it's not only a fence, but they got the television camera, they've got the electronics that's monitored 24/7 by officials who can move military-type personnel in immediately to stop anybody that tries to come across. We could do the same thing. If they can do it in Israel.
Sure we can do it.
Sure we can do it. That's right.
And they're actually dealing with some of the issues that are tougher than ours because they're in major population centers.
That's right.
We've had a little shake-up, and I'm curious where you stand on it. I'm just reading an article today about the trucking issue. We had an experiment with Mexican truckers. Our trucking industry is very opposed to the Mexican truckers driving in the United States. And we basically, this Congress, voted not to continue the experimental process of letting them drive in the United States, which resulted in them raising tariffs on some of our, which they have a right to do under the NAFTA agreement. Where I live at least, NAFTA's been a huge economic booster along I-35. It's created, especially in San Antonio and South, it's created lots of jobs, good jobs, because that kind of trade is good for everybody. Now we've started to see trade barriers, and you and I know that in the last Great Depression, some of the trade barriers that started to have the trade barrier wars were part of that big depression. And we got enough problems with the economy right now without that happening. You have any comments on that?
Well, talking about I-35, though, you were not in favor of the Trans-Texas Corridor, though, right?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm opposed to the Trans-Texas Corridor.
You and I both, because, that wasn't even going to have enough access roads to really be usable by my folks in East Texas.
It was an insane idea that really upset an awful lot of people.
Well, I mean, there was some merit to it, but the way it was going to be done and having a foreign country is going to be controlling things for all those years. So, I'm all for I-69 coming through there, and I think it's the interstate highway system is a great thing. I think it's good to move goods through. It makes us part of the international economy, but it also provides jobs. But I want to be fair. I mean, if somebody meets the requirements of our tests, and whether it's driving or the trucks meet the tests, then I'm okay with being on our roads. But our number one job should be protecting our citizens.
American jobs, that's right.
I mean, we took an oath that, and we are supposed to, our number one job is to provide for the common defense.
Amen.
And that is part of the job, is making sure that people that operate on our roads do not put us in greater danger than they would be. And so, whatever we do, it needs to make sure our people are not in greater danger than they are without the folks there.
Well, that's an issue that ultimately could cause us some problems. I think people are going to try to figure out a way to compromise that issue. But I don't want to see a tariff war. I really
we don't need that. Of course, I've been an advocate about the most insidious tax in the country needing to go away. People in Washington have basically scared people and made them believe, the way to avoid you paying taxes, we tax the corporations, these greedy, evil corporations. Well, the corporations can't stay in business. They don't pass it on to the people.
Right. We pay those taxes.
And so, I've done some looking into that too. The best way to create new jobs in America is to say, you know what, we're doing away with the corporate tax. And unlike some of the penalty provisions and things we're trying to do, that it doesn't trigger any penalties with any trade agreement. It's not a subsidy, and it allows our goods to be bought up all around the country, be more competitive, because people are, and jobs would move back in this country like crazy. But again, we still got to protect the borders to make sure people who operate in this country are legally here. And it can be done.
We cannot let that lawless environment encroach, which could easily happen. In fact, I would argue is happening.
Yeah.
And because there are now gun battles that have crossed the border. If that starts to encroach into Texas, then lawlessness, we spread that lawless community. And like you said, one of the real differences between a successful country, and I would argue actually the real difference between a successful country and a non-successful, is the rule of law.
That's right.
I was in Nicaragua, and I saw some of the prettiest country down there, and I thought, you know what? There's no reason on earth these people aren't prospering. Yeah. They got ranch land that looks as good as anything you ever saw. They got farmland that's got plenty of water, shallow underground. They could irrigate. They could be the Rio Grande Valley in a tropical climate. 3 crops a year they could produce down there. Why can't they? Because they don't have even land titles for their land. They don't have the rule of law. They don't have a court they can trust to rule in disputes between people.
Yeah.
And so, without the rule of law, even with good resources, you got problems.
That's right.
And the more we allow lawlessness, and that's why we got to tighten the border. That's it. We've got to make it a lawful activity at both ends, but our end is very important.
Well, because that is where even Al-Qaeda is saying that's the easiest way to get a suitcase full of anthrax in is through Mexico. Then that ought to tell us.
That ought to tell us something.
That's where we need to be.
Well, I'm going to change the subject in which I don't try to surprise you. Something popped into my head. I know you and I have been vocal opponents to all the spending that's going on up here in Washington. And you actually had one of the best proposals everybody came down with when you said, if you want to get money in the hands of the American people, just don't tax them for 3 months.
Yeah.
Just let them keep their taxes for 3 months.
Yes.
And it was a great idea. And actually, a lot of the people, the talk show folks types, they thought it was a great idea too. And several economists commented positively on it. But it never had an opportunity.
And actually,
to get
Moody's did an independent research and said of all the proposals that involved tax, that increased the 1-year GDP more than any other proposal. And it let the money be in people's pockets. We did a survey of our district. What would you do if you got this money back for 1, 2, 3 months? And people were going, well, gosh, we'd be able to buy a new car. Well, then you bail out the manufacturers.
Instead of putting the government in the car business.
It's putting us in the car business. I mean, we don't do that good a job running the government, much less making cars and insurance business and banking business. That is insane. It is a complete abandonment of the principles that made this country so great. I mean, this stuff's been tried before. You know, the Pilgrims, when they came over, they signed this beautiful compact that was going to allow everybody to share everything and bring into the common storehouse and share. Well, they lost nearly half their people the first winter, and they said, you know what, new rule.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have private property, and you produce what you're going to live on, and you can trade or do whatever, but it's going to be yours. And that found its way 150 years later into our Declaration of Independence, into the Constitution, that we need to have free markets and give people freedom. And we have been so busy in Washington, and I say we because you and I have been upset about it. And
we've been voting no, but we've been and that's busy voting no.
Yeah, but we've been so busy trying to tell car manufacturers how to make cars and banks exactly what they have to do, not the investment banks. We've been so busy doing that, we hadn't gone after cheaters like Madoff, people that were violating the law. We should have been defending this country from domestic enemies like Madoff, and instead, we're too busy telling everybody how to run their life. And I don't know if you remember, but back when President Bush brought up that first stimulus package, I was upset. $40 billion of the $160 billion was going as rebates to people that didn't pay the tax that they were going to get rebates on. And so I didn't know the mic was open, but it picked me up asking President Bush as he came by the State of the Union, by the way, Mr. Bush, Mr. President, how do you give a rebate to people that didn't put any bait in? It's not a rebate if you didn't put bait in. And anyway, I didn't know the mic picked me up, but it did, and people made a big deal of it. But that's how I feel. You don't give rebates to people that didn't put the money in the first place.
That's not a rebate. That's a welfare check.
That's right. And what we saw after the 90s was, after that welfare reform, you know, I saw a chart. I couldn't believe it was at Harvard at a course up there, but they had charts that for the first time in 30 years, single women with children's income, when adjusted for inflation, started going up after welfare reform. Because one of the things that grieved me as a judge was, going back to the 60s, the best of intentions, the Great Society, they saw from here in Washington single women struggling to raise kids with deadbeat dads. They said, let's help them, let's give them a check. 40 years later, you get what you paid for. We have paid for so many children to be born out of wedlock, and I was having more and more young women come to me, and it's same story. Somebody encouraged them, well, you're bored with high school, drop out, have a kid, and the government will send you the check. Then they find out you can't live on that money. So they have another and another, and they still get further behind. And so then they would get desperate, and they would go get a job and then not report it because they needed the income to get ahead. And then that was welfare fraud. So here they came to court. And it hit me that we are giving incentives to lure people into a rut with no way out.
That's right.
We ought to be giving incentives to reach the God-given potential that everybody has, not luring them into a rut they can't get out of. Somebody told me they were living in a low-rent government housing and trying to save money for a down payment for a home, and when the government found out they had a savings account, they were saving money, they said, you either get rid of it or you got to move out. We need to be incentivizing to reach your potential.
That's right.
And so we're doing the wrong things. We're saying, you know, come into America illegally and hurt us, you know, take jobs away from people that are here legally. You know, we need to make sure the people that come here are legal, and I hope so many of them are Hispanics with that good culture.
Well, you know, I have
I
don't know, in my area, I have a large Hispanic population. I have a Hispanic council. They give me some of the wisest ideas.
Yes.
We try to talk not just about the issues that are particular to them, but they're Americans.
That's right.
They got the same issues you and I were just talking about.
Absolutely.
They're concerned about the spending. They're concerned about the borrowing money.
Well, they're not fools. They know you can't keep borrowing from China and printing money at the same time and not put your government in jeopardy. You know, I went back recently and looked at the demise of the Soviet Union. You know, if you remember, Poland and some of Eastern Europe was revolting, and people didn't understand why they didn't move in. we were going to loan them $100 billion to keep them from going bankrupt as a country. And we told them behind the scenes, you know what, you move in there with tanks, your call, but if you move in there, we won't loan you the $100 billion. So they didn't roll in on them because we had them over a barrel financially.
That's right.
Well, who's got us over a barrel financially right now? Right. You can't do that and maintain a nation, and we owe it to this country to be more responsible than that.
Well, Louie, I appreciate you being with me today. We're about to run out of time, and I knew that my friend Louie Gohmert, he can talk on issues, and we're proud of you. We tease Louie about as much as anybody does. The leadership teases him all the time. When we go to the White House, we got the best laughs. The president got the best laughs from his friend Louie Gohmert from East Texas, because Louie he's a treasure to this whole organization. And so I knew
you're the treasure.
I knew
so
we'd
I
get
appreciate
a
that opinion.
we'd get a good conversation. We always do. Louie understands how it works up here, and both of us, we are blessed to come from the land of common sense, and so we're going to send this message out to the folks in Texas that our heritage for Texas has given us the opportunity to hopefully bring some common sense back to Washington. I have a saying that what we need of is less of Washington and Texas and more of Texas and Washington. And that's one of our goals, to keep getting more of Texas in Washington to try to turn this craziness around. We've got issues on our southern border, folks. These issues we've talked about before. Nobody fights harder to try to keep Texas and the rest of our nation safe than Louie Gohmert and I, because we daily are discussing issues to do with our immigration issues. And as what Louie said, we're about bringing good people in here legally. We spent our lives enforcing the law for Texans. We respect the law, and as the law is respected, then that culture is respected. So it's about legal immigration. It's about protecting our borders. I want to thank all of the people that watch this show. We're blessed to be able to do it and bring it to you. If you have any questions or want to make a comment, be sure and call the office there in Round Rock, 512-246-1600. Contact them. At the end of this show, you'll see how you can contact us in other ways. Watch that, write it down, and get in touch with us, because we like to hear from you. Louie will confirm a message from back home is the most important message we get on a daily basis. So please communicate with us and let us know how we can help you. We'll help you with issues with the government. Contact us. That's what we're there for. We thank you, and thank you, Louie, for being here with me.
Always a pleasure, Jim.
And we appreciate everybody. And for that this is Judgment in Congress for today. Thank you.